Hey everybody, my name's Zack LaVergne. I'm a software engineer here with my colleague Ben Clark, a UI engineer, both working on the Map with AI team at Meta. Today we're going to talk about the AI-powered tasking manager that the Map with AI team has built over the last year, as well as an introduction into Map with AI and the tools that we built previously. To dive in, we'll start by talking about Map with AI. Map with AI was born because Meta uses maps across multiple surfaces, and the main data source for those maps is OSM data. You can see here a few examples: disaster response, check-ins, travel recommendation posts, etc. The Map with AI team was sort of born out of this need. So we've been actively mapping in OSM since 2017 across a big list of countries, and our main focus at first was adding in roads, and we've recently started also adding buildings in a lot of these countries. This is a high-level look at the sort of overall Map with AI workflow. At the left side of this, we've got the prediction process all the way through to submission to live OSM, as well as validation pipelines that we have internally, as well as we utilize like OSM CHA. Our AI detected road data set is able to be global because we're able to train our model on a global data set. So instead of building a machine learning model just for Uganda or Australia, Brazil, we were able to build one global model that allowed us to produce a global output. And what you're seeing here is an image of where all of the training tiles were. We had over 1 million tiles that we trained off of. Each was a kilometer by kilometer. And that's what this image is showing. So going into the process a little bit more deeply, we start with a raw satellite image like what you see here. Human eye can pick out a few rows already. Excuse me. And then the machine learning model looks at that single tile, satellite image tile, and creates rasterized road predictions, which is what you see, these pink lines. You can see they sort of fade in and out with tree coverage, but they do follow the same general lines that you could tell were roads. Next, we pull out what we call a mask of those roads, or predicted rasterized roads, and then from that mask, we are able to create vectors. The vectors allow us to finally edit and manipulate the data. Next, the last part of this process is conflating with live OSM data. Same area, and it's got a road running right through the middle of it. We need to conflate away OSM data so we don't have any duplicate data. And then this is what we're left over with, which is all of these magenta predicted roads minus the ones that overlapped with the existing OSM roads. One additional thing that we do during this step is we go ahead and, to the best of our ability, create the connections with the existing OSM data. So any of the roads you see here that have a node that end at or they cross over the existing OSM data, we will do the work both in the conflation service and in our tools Rapid and the JAWS Map with AI plugin to connect the predicted roads with the existing OSM roads. So now we're going to talk about Rapid, which is one of the tools we built to utilize and show users the data that's resulting from the process that we just went through. Rapid is a fork of the ID editor, and so a lot of the UI elements are the same, and it's going to feel very familiar. And so here's an example of how we use Rapid to show the user that predicted data. So we start with satellite imagery, just like you see here. We add in the OSM roads, just like regular ID at this point. And then what Rapid does is add in the predicted features and does a little bit of extra conflation and, like I said, tries to do those connections between existing OSM data. And so what you're seeing here, the lines are the Map with AI predicted roads, and the buildings are from the Microsoft machine learning building data set. In addition to the AI data sets, we also have this new integration with Esri that allows us to bring authoritative data sets from like local municipalities, for instance, local governments into Rapid. And I'm going to pass it over to Ben now to talk a little more in depth about using Rapid and how to use these Esri integrations.
Greetings, everybody. I'm Benjamin Clark from the Meta Map with AI team. I'm here to talk a little bit about our map editor, Rapid, and the new Esri integration that we added to it. So if you open up the Rapid dialog, you'll see this fairly new Add Manage Datasets prompt here. And once here, you can actually scroll through. We have about 100 plus datasets right now. Given that we have so many datasets, it's helpful to be able to filter them. So you can use the text filter functionality, or you can also filter by dataset type. So we'll add this dataset to the map and hit OK. And then we can click Center Map here to zoom straight there. Now, by default, we're a little bit too zoomed out for Rapid to start loading data, so we can zoom in to edit. And then we'll have to wait a few seconds for all of the data to go ahead and load. You can see here's one candidate building that just loaded up here, and all the rest of the buildings that are being loaded from that data set. This is all data that is being loaded live from Esri's API. Even the list of data sets that we display is all assembled on the fly by Rapid using a few API calls to the Esri backend. All right, let's zoom in over here. Looks like we have quite a few buildings. Recently, we added an extra feature to Rapid that lets you see any tagging information that these buildings come with, which can be useful, especially if you're going to be zooming around a neighborhood to make sure that addresses are correct. And from here, you can just use the regular workflow. With Rapid, you can either just click Use this feature or hit the shortcut of A. And that's all there is to the Rapid workflow. Next, let's zoom in a little bit and compare the footprints of these buildings. You'll notice that a lot of the Esri building footprints are usually quite good, but in this case, we can see there's maybe a little bit of a difference as far as our imagery offset, fairly common problem. So we can go check to see which imagery we want to be looking at. So we can try a couple of different imageries to see if we can find something that looks a little bit better. That's certainly a lot nicer. And from there, you can also use the traditional Facebook roads and Microsoft buildings. Those are both AI data sets, as opposed to the Esri data, which is a combination of human surveyor created, local municipalities and governments or NGOs have been supplying a lot of different information to Esri. So most of the information, in fact, I believe all of the information you get from this Add Esri dataset functionality it's not AI predicted. So the only AI layers we have are the global roads layer and the buildings layer that's available in several countries. Finally, while you're using Rapid, if you are a little bit unsure about the new features that Rapid provides over and above ID, you can also go to the keyboard shortcuts, and you'll see that we have any Rapid specific shortcuts are specifically called out in the Shortcuts UI. That concludes this very, very brief introduction to what Rapid can bring to the map. So thank you for listening, and we hope to catch you on Twitter or the OSM US Slack. You can always send your questions or feedback to osm@fb.com.
Now we'll go talk about the tasking manager and all the features the Map with AI team has built over the last year. In a similar way to how we forked ID to make Rapid, we've now forked the tasking manager, the TM4, to create the Map with AI tasking manager. And what we've done with this tasking manager is, one, add additional project management features to provide more information to project managers as well as give them more control, as well as integrating Map with AI services like Rapid. We'll first start with going through the project management features. So first we're going to talk about two features to help aid in the mapping process. The first one will be called something we call task assignment, and the second one, something we call adjacent task lock. So if I select this task, map selected task, so normally you would come in and you would map the task and finish it, hopefully. But if you can't finish the task, then you may need to select that the task is not completely mapped, submit the task. So what task assignment does, instead of leaving that task for anyone else to come back and finish and not have much context around, task assignment sort of acts as ownership. And so you can see here, this little icon is my user icon. So that's showing that this task is assigned to me, and a project manager or admin can click on that icon with someone in it to unassign, or they can go to a task that hasn't been assigned yet and manually assign a task to someone as well. The other feature that I wanted to show while we were in here is something that we call adjacent task lock, which in reality prevents surrounding tasks from being locked. So you see here, I have this task selected, and this task is already mapped, so it's not a concern for the mapping stage, but all of these surrounding tasks are now prevented from being locked by another user. Now over here with a different user, we can see that these are locked and I'm unable to select that task. It's telling me to map another task. So these are two features that we've introduced to sort of aid in the mapping process. So we'll get back out of here, and then the next feature is just some additional metrics. So if we go to the My Contributions page, My Stats, we've surfaced these for an individual user. So you can see by project your numbers for mapping and validation and your time spent. You're able to view either mapped or validated with additional metrics, as well as filter by date or project. You can also export the results as a CSV and load them into any spreadsheet tool. So in addition to surfacing these on a user page, we've also surfaced these for project managers at a team level. So we can go into manage and teams, and then we can see a breakdown per user of their mapping numbers. Basically the same stats, just instead of broken down by project for a user, they're broken down for a user for a team. And instead of filtering by project, we can filter by a team, but again, still has a date range, and also can still be exported. So the next two features we're going to talk about have not been, are still in the final stages of development, but they should be out live in the next month or so. So the first one is a pretty simple change, but it's one that we've found to be pretty helpful, especially when you have a lot of, maybe your organized editing team has a lot of very similar or nondescript usernames. We utilize the actual name from the personal information that a user has added, and we've surfaced that sort of across the application is what we're going for. There's a few more places we're finding that we missed. And so those are the last parts that are being fleshed out. But you can see here, it shows my name rather than my username. This other account does not have their name added, and so we revert back to just showing their username. And the last feature, or second to last feature we're going to talk about is this new validations section. So this validation section is a tighter integration with OSM CHA. So what we do here is anytime a task is marked as mapped or validated, we'll make a request to OSM CHA asking for change set by this user in that spot at this time, and we will get the results back. And what we're looking for in those results is whether or not there were flags. And the idea here being to aid in the validation processes, as well as provide a more sort of holistic validation system. So even after validation, we're able to see that this validation change set had these flags potentially. And we also additionally have links directly out to OSM CHA. And the last feature we want to talk about is the most exciting to us, and that's our integration with Rapid. So when TM4 came out, they launched a embedded version of the ID editor. We've taken that same technology to achieve the same goal with Rapid. Now you can use Rapid within the tasking manager and never have to leave the tab. We're most excited about this really because this is the foundation for being able to build out much more powerful integrations with external data sets like the map with AI roads, the Esri authoritative data sets, things like that. Like one feature we'd really like to build out is allowing project managers to add a data set from within the tasking manager for a particular project, and then Rapid will automatically load that when the mapper loads Rapid. And we'd really love more ideas. So if any project managers, mappers, validators have ideas on more use cases for the Rapid integration, we would love to hear them. You can create a GitHub issue, reach out to us on Slack, the Map with AI feedback channel. You can also email us at osm@fb.com. And that's the end of our presentation. I want to thank everyone for coming and participating. The 2 ways to contact us I just mentioned are down on the bottom right of this slide. But now is the time to start Q&A. Thank you.